Hey guys, what's up? How are you all doing? I hope you are doing great and amazing. Welcome to my channel one more time for a new book. The book we have today is An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth. What going to space taught me about ingenuity, determination, and being prepared for anything by Chris Hadfield. So the book genre is society and tech and personalities as well. So Chris Hadfield is a retired Canadian engineer, astronaut, and an ex-Royal Canadian Air Force fighter pilot. He is the first Canadian to ever walk in space. That's pretty crazy, right? Okay, so I'm very excited, guys, to share that book with you, right? And let's dig into the book and let's learn something new today.
Becoming an astronaut is not easy, and there's no margin for error when you become one. Spaceflight is an experience that brings mixed feelings and emotions, especially among first-timers. Like Chris Hadfield, the first Canadian to walk in space, described, it was an experience that gave him enthusiasm and fear. Going to the launch pad had given him a vague apprehension, and he had thought about everything that could go wrong with the launch. On getting to space, however, he felt relaxed and went about his work with a massive smile on his face. An astronaut is someone whose work is more than just traveling into space. Space flight alone doesn't do the trick of making one an astronaut. Being an astronaut means being able to process information quickly, while also making quick decisions. In a lot of cases, an astronaut has to work with incomplete information. The consequences of his actions to this information is essential to his survival and that of the whole team. Astronauts are like public servants who are in the service profession. They are tasked with doing something difficult on behalf of their country. It involves years of continuous and strenuous training to be prepared for their flight into space. According to Chris, constant flights into space are one of the ways to improve an astronaut's experience. On his third flight into space, Chris had already become one of the most senior officers. The first trip of an astronaut takes a lifetime to prepare and launch, but it's only a stepping stone into a world of vast experiences and better decisions. There's no such thing as too much knowledge for an astronaut. Irrespective of how competent or experienced you are, you should always be open to learning as an astronaut because there's always the next test. Becoming an astronaut is not an easy task, it takes years of rigorous training. You're consistently working on tests and practices on various subjects and fields. Changes in your life affect your chances of flying significantly. Medical examinations and mental evaluations are one of the numerous verification processes you have to pass. A minor health problem can easily disqualify you from going to space. A problem with your life automatically puts you at risk of not being qualified for a space flight. This is because once you're airborne, there's little to no margin for error. Space flight is a bonus rather than an entitlement. It depends on many factors that are beyond human control, which is why placing absolute trust on a bonus is not a wise decision. The right attitude is essential for an astronaut's mental strength and survival. In the case of Chris, he was able to handle his job well because he didn't hang everything that has to do with his life on his mission in space. He went to work and took each day as it came. Developing the right attitude is the same as getting and imbibing the right orientation about enjoying being an astronaut. Attitude is vital to the survival of the mission and the people who are inside the space or on Earth. As an astronaut, you need to accept that you'll master a lot of skills that seem odd and improbable. You might end up not using some of these skills at all. The idea behind developing a successful attitude is that it helps you prepare well for good and bad days. Having the right attitude helps you control negative thoughts. Fear comes as a result of not knowing what to expect and being helpless about anything that could happen. You must learn to overcome your fears no matter what they are. Push past your fears by facing them and controlling them. As an astronaut should not be gripped by fear, lest he allows it to get the better of him. Understand the problem behind your fear, and try to control your reaction to it. It doesn't matter if the fear still lingers, as long as you're able to control it, you're good to go. Success is not guaranteed simply because you're feeling ready. Being ready only prepares you for possible outcomes that could arise from any situation. This is why astronauts go through bad news simulation scenarios elaborately. They are being forced to experience what failure could look like, and then taught the best way to handle it. This tactic reinforces simulations so much that you're forced to subconsciously and automatically know what to do when similar situations occur. Training helps you to develop instincts and reactions that allow you to take care of a negative situation without losing focus, balance, or concentration. To overcome negative thoughts, you must first confront your fears and learn how to control them. Pay attention to every detail. There are some things you consider small or even unnecessary. These things are important if you pay attention to them. Employing a beginner's tactic is an excellent way for astronauts to learn more. When Chris discovered that he wasn't doing well with his jet training tests, he decided to start studying in the planes instead of his room. By so doing, he was able to checklist a lot of things and learn more about what he was going to be asked. A good astronaut doesn't assume he knows every detail. Getting overconfident about your knowledge only leads to failure. There's no such thing as over-preparation for an astronaut. The more you prepare, the more your chances of improving your odds. An astronaut is open to criticism at all times. He is reviewed at regular intervals by people who are hopeful for a flaw they can work on. Your mistakes are projected as lessons to others, so it's advisable you learn to accept criticism and scrutiny. It is also important to study the flight rules as much as possible. Debriefing is another thing that you must get used to. Debriefing is done all the time to review what could have been done better, how, and why it should have. Teamwork is the closest guarantee you have to survival and success. It is not possible to be an astronaut by chance or accident. On average, new astronauts are 34 years old because they have to be well trained for years before they are certified. The chances of becoming an astronaut now are also very slim. Only 2 astronauts were chosen out of 5,351 candidates that applied in 2009 in Canada. In the year that NASA reviewed 3,564 applications, only 9 spots were available. You have to be highly competitive when you apply to become an astronaut. Early success is a terrible teacher. It doesn't adequately prepare you for situations where things don't go your way. Once you lose grip of the whole strenuous exercises and tests required to be an astronaut, you'll find yourself down the pecking order. Being an astronaut means you'll be willing to keep going on, making quitting your last option. Astronauts must get the job done at all times. You learn to work with anybody and everybody. You must understand people's personalities, and you must understand that astronauts are naturally very competitive. Should things go wrong in space, your crewmen are the last people left in the world to save you. Your survival depends on the effort of everyone, the same way theirs depends on yours. Learn to invest in other people's success because a healthy environment is what brings about a healthy result. Becoming a pilot is no child's play. You need to be 100% focused at all times, most especially when you fly in formation. Even though flying in formation makes it easy to keep an eye on one another, it is also easy to kill one another if you lose focus. Focus allows you to calculate a situation quickly while maintaining balance. There's little you can do when you're 150 feet in the sky flying a plane, and a problem arises. Focus doesn't guarantee safety, but it significantly improves your chances of survival should anything go wrong. Focus can come in good and bad ways. When you're focused on the wrong things, you tend to lose focus on the real situation at hand. Whereas there's a fire in the cockpit, for example, there's usually just a split second between making decisions that would determine whether you live or die. Being a pilot involves many things, one of which is knowing that, going in, there's no guarantee of coming out. There are a lot of situations that could hamper your survival that is out of your control. You must be concentrated on your environment at all times. Failure to do this tends to lead to disaster for you or your crewmen. Understanding roles, and knowing when to switch personalities go a long way in determining a great astronaut. An astronaut is constantly developing and assembling the right mindset and the necessary skills to control and overcome situations. The simulations they go through, however, only prepares them for what is supposed to be the real event. The real event is an entirely different feeling. The whole event requires adequate and careful planning. You can't make up formulations or decisions. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to do it right. Physical and mental adaptation to a new environment is essential to survival. When you're in the right frame of mind, you find it easy to navigate through problems, whether big or small. You must allow yourself to have control over your emotions. Allowing emotions to get the best of you only opens up negative thoughts that won't do you any good. A lot of people, astronauts included, believe that being an astronaut is the same as being a superhero. This notion has not been helped by movies where astronauts are always portrayed to be heroes who always step in at the right time. There are three ways in which astronauts are viewed: a -1, a 0, 1, a +1. A -1 is seen as the actively harmful one, someone who brings and creates problems. A 0-1 is the one whose impact has no significant improvement or deduction. A +1 is the one who actively adds value at all times. Everyone strives to be a +1, but it is advisable to aim for the 0-1. The truth of the matter is that most applicants have no idea what it means to be an astronaut. Their mental image doesn't include the rigorous tests and strenuous reading exercises they have to do to get a chance of going to space. As an astronaut, if you enter a new environment with the mindset of coming out full force as a +1, you risk wreaking havoc instead. Being a 0-1 makes it easier to work with a team. Being a 0-1 doesn't mean you'll shy away from responsibilities. When the need arises, you'll have to exhibit your plus side. You need to understand your environment as well as your skill to be a +1. No matter how skillful or experienced you are, if you're unable to understand your environment, you'll end up being a -1 instead of a +1. A true +1 is always admired and respected because he doesn't rub his greatness in people's faces. Chris was in training for mission STS-74 in 1995, when he studied Jerry Ross, the most experienced astronaut on board, as he did some works meant for the commander. Jerry did this because he wanted the commander to have more time to work on other important things. According to Chris, the act, coupled with the humility in which Jerry went about it, made him a +1 without stressing it. Getting used to a life of the Earth is challenging. A life off the Earth was a grand experience for Chris and his crewmen when they left Earth to dock on the ISS. The ISS is a million-pound spaceship that's the size of a standard football pitch. Life on the ISS was interesting and new. Even though the spaceship had well-advanced technological features, some aspects of the ship made some of the experience look odd. For example, there's no running water, gravity makes it impossible. There's very little privacy, and also a shortage of supply in fresh produce. The lack of gravity makes a significant alteration to the ways of daily life because it affects almost everything. Toothbrushing is hard because you have to swallow the paste instead of spitting it. Washing your hand requires careful application of a special gel that can only be towel-dried. Long, hot showers are not allowed. Clothes are repeatedly worn because there's no way to wash them. Life in space is fun, and it's not always about serious work. The new environment and experience is something to savor and enjoy for any astronaut. Off the Earth, you can choose to focus on the pleasures and surprises, or you can choose to frown on the frustrations. It all depends on whether you want to be happy. The job of an astronaut goes beyond doing things in space. It is also a way to let people know more about what's going on in space. Chris was able to share real-time experiences with pictures taken in space. He was also able to respond to questions thrown at him on the Reddit website set up for him by his 30-year-old son. Chris felt that it would be a great idea for people to know what goes on in space, and also share beautiful moments with people on Earth. As much as there are pleasant situations in orbit, there are also unpleasant situations that require maximum effort. When situations arise that need you to help, you must learn how to switch between a 0-1 and a +1. The life of an astronaut, most especially a senior astronaut, requires great leadership skills. Different processes, similar emotions. Launching off the Earth is as challenging as coming back to Earth. Even though the processes are entirely different, the feelings and emotions are similar. Going to space and coming back to Earth are journeys that could go either way. Either you survive, or you die. Getting a space shuttle ready for re-entry requires multiple checks and modifications, one of which is to point the belly of the shuttle towards the sun for hours so the rubber tires would be warm enough for landing. Like launching, landing also requires maximum concentration and focus. Some situations might arise that would threaten the safety of the entire crew if care is not taken. For example, when Chris and his crewmen were leaving space in the Soyuz, one of his crewmen had his helmet jammed. It took a conscious effort and determination from Chris to control the situation and prevent a terrible disaster. Landing back on Earth is no easy task. Even after the Soyuz had landed, the pilots and astronauts had to wait for at least an hour for over 150 control switches to be switched off before they could alight. After this comes the part where the pilots and the astronauts have to get used to gravity again and familiarize themselves with an environment that might look new to them after a long time in orbit. A true astronaut doesn't only dwell on his good and biggest moments. He tries as much as possible to enjoy all the moments. It's never over. Even when you land on Earth, there are still months of debriefing, extensive rehabilitation, medical tests, etc. from a lot of people in NASA and the ISS. As a true astronaut, do your best, value the wisdom of humility, and know when you should lie down. The best way to climb down a ladder is by appreciating and celebrating all you did while you were on top. Conclusion. The life of an astronaut is not as easy as it looks, and it's not as hard as it seems. Through the eyes of an expert, Chris Hadfield has explained in detail what and what not to expect on Earth and in space. It takes a lot to be an astronaut, but once you experience life in space, you'll realize it's worth every bit of the stress. If you plan on becoming an astronaut, you need to unlearn a lot of things and accept within you that it's going to be a long ride. Believe in yourself and study all the details you can to become a great astronaut.
Alright, you guys, so we finished the book. It was really great. We learned a lot about astronaut. So let me know, guys, in the comments, have you ever wondered or have you ever wanted to be an astronaut before? So this is what's gonna take for you to be an astronaut. So if you are up for it, go do it. Okay, so that's it, guys. Just let me know in the comments what you think about the book. Okay, and follow my IG. Okay, because it has a lot of content and it has a lot of insights in the books that I'm sharing with you every single day. So thank you, guys. I love you all so much. You have a wonderful week.